Wow. I got to tell you, before we even start, Steve, and I read the book. I just finished the book last week, and I got asked to do this, and I'm a huge fan of you, and we have met before, and we've worked together. But when I read the book, and this isn't only to you, and I'm sure there are people here, this is so much bigger than you and your music and your celebrity. I thought that this was a great life lesson, self-help book because it was so honest. You don't have to know anything about EDM. I don't know anything about EDM. I know nothing about music. No, but I don't. I listen to his music and I like it. I don't know what I'm listening to half the time, but I just enjoy it. It makes me bob my head and have a good time. And I've been to the club at Caesars and watched the place just blow up. And I watched your documentary. But this book is the epitome of a path that you take through life and where you are now versus where you came from, and not judging a book by its cover. And I'll start even at the beginning. You grew up in Orange County. You're a little and so did she. And you're a little Japanese boy in Orange County sticks out as it is, right?
Yeah.
And do you think you had a good childhood? Was it a comfortable childhood?
I wouldn't say it's a comfortable childhood. I think any way you look at it, if you grow up in something that's 96% the same thing, so in this case in Newport Beach is 96% white, anyone else is going to deal with some level of ignorance, discrimination, whatever it might be, subliminal or in your face. And when you're a kid growing up, it's definitely more in your face because the filter level of how kids express themselves that's unfiltered, right? So
right, it's unfiltered and it's mean. And you were not only Japanese, but you were little. You were a tiny guy, right? Real little.
But it's like at the end of the day, when there's that period of time where you're lost, you're confused, you're scared to speak up. You have a mom. My mom is in that traditional sense of don't rock the boat, don't stand out, which is a very Japanese style of dealing with life. It's kind of ingrained in the tradition of Japanese cultures, not to make too much noise. My father was quite opposite because when he came to America, he's like, now I have to be an American.
Well, that's the opposite of what the culture is, right? Because for those that don't know, you tell them who your father is. Your father is?
Yeah, my father is the founder of Benihana's, and he has like this rags to riches incredible story of making the American dream, which is when he wrote his book.
Having him as a father, which was we won't go into the specifics of his life, but having him as a father, like people know Benihana's.
Yeah.
So and they also knew about his, he was always on an adventure, he was racing boats and doing things, but he wasn't part of your life growing up.
Yeah, he was like, I always considered him like this superhero, aspirational, he's my dad, but, he comes in, swoops in, and I go off on a little journey with him, and then he drops back off into, my humble way of living with my mom and my grandfather, and it's very much the polar opposite of my dad's life, who's just like the Richard Branson of his, that kind of thing.
So the feeling that I got from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from the time you're a little boy, it's like, and I feel like you're still doing that today, you're always searching. Right. You're always looking, and whether you're looking for a place to belong, a place to be, a person maybe unlike you are now that you can become. So when did you first start noticing music? Like when did music come into your life?
Well, I did talk about how like the first music that really grabbed me was rap music, which is, because I'm this little Asian kid in Newport Beach, and I'm like obsessed with Eazy-E and NWA, because it's like polar opposites of my world. But like,
absolutely,
I'm like, wow, they're like, the lyrics are so graphic, and there's like the storylines are so, and I just like was obsessed with like.
Obsessed. Could you play it in the
West
house?
Coast rap music. Yeah, I was like writing all the lyrics down, like pretending to be them, like.
So this little Asian boy, Eazy-E.
But then like obviously I'm not gonna be like stunting and pretending to be like this, like the lifestyle that they're talking about. But the next, I guess, stage of music where I was like, okay, I can call this my own is punk and hardcore music.
Again, not the image. Because culturally, as somebody who's not Japanese, as you said, your mother is saying that's so out front. Right. It's so opposite of what your culture is and how you were being raised. when you're looking to this music and you're listening to the music, are you listening as a fan or are you aspiring to be in this world?
It was, okay, so the idea of searching was I'm always looking. I'm always trying to figure out, like, who I am, what am I supposed to be doing here, like, how do I meet the right friends? And obviously the traditional way of making friends and socializing and getting accepted and getting your cool points is like sports, is, you know, like the traditional means. Every time I did anything that was traditional, I was a major failure. My dad was a wrestler,
Yeah.
so I was like, I'm gonna wrestle. First match in, I almost broke my neck. The guy almost flipped me over. I had to go to the hospital.
What weight class were you in?
I mean, I was 90 pounds. Like,
Right, so
dripping
under
wet,
90 pounds, you're wearing a singlet, you're wearing a little...
Yeah, and I'm like, you know, doing whatever I'm supposed to do, and then I just, you know. And then with basketball, I was playing. I was obviously the shortest player on the team. Scored on the wrong hoop a few times. They
So
passed me
height
the
has
ball, and I'd
nothing
just be
to do...
Like, oh, I made it, you know. And same with soccer. Like, you know, I like scored on my goal, I think twice. I don't know.
Are
what
you
the hell,
dyslexic?
I think, no, it's more because I'm so nervous, right? I was a nervous, very kind of shy, like stuttering. I can't get my words straight. I'm afraid to talk. And that's like, you know, that's really interesting because there's a lot of kids like that. There's a lot of people like that. They're like, I will not amount to anything extraordinary that I can imagine because I am still very insecure, scared, or whatever it might be that sets you back.
That's what I found fascinating about the whole book, is even from your beginnings, and I think there isn't a person alive, regardless of where you grow up and who you are and what you are, that doesn't feel somewhat insecure or somewhat like an outsider when you walk into a room. You are the consummate outsider. Even don't judge a book by its cover. You're this little scrawny Japanese boy who's listening to Eazy-E and then punk music.
Right.
You know, and
but see, there's something about that with like inside of me. I'm like desperate to scream, desperate to yell, desperate to say something, but I didn't know how to do that. And every time I tried, it just didn't seem to connect. People would just turn. But then that's when I found like these kids that were like hanging around at a different bench, like listening to something different, skating and doing something like just outside of what everyone else is doing. And they don't care if you're good at football, or they don't care if you rode in on like a really expensive bike or whatever it might be that makes you cool in the school. And it all was a mixtape of like these bands screaming about something.
But even that type of music per se in our world is not pop. You know, it's not popular.
No.
It's you were to a niche. You know,
Yes.
you were going to
I needed that
weird
niche.
outside niches.
I needed that in order for me to find my voice, because I couldn't find it in the popular route. There's just no way for me. There's no room for me. It didn't feel like I could never be in what everyone else was doing. Of course, I tried. I mean, I was in football.
Right.
I was like somehow like you know, just by maybe they just had to. They're like, we have to get Steve Aoki. We have to get this little kid in because otherwise
What position?
I mean, I only played one time.
I think it.
You know, I was a bench warmer. I was a great bench warmer.
Sitting.
Right?
It was your position.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know what? He did pass the ball to me. I'll never forget it, because like when those things happen, you never forget it.
Right.
Jonathan Benzinger was the QB. He's my friend, and no
You
one
still remember his name.
No one. What do you call it? Guarded me.
That's how little you were.
So like, yeah, because they're like, let's guard the other bigger guys, and I'm like, I'm free like this, like, yo, I'm free, and he just totally whiffed the ball. I'm like, no, I could have caught the ball, but it landed before me, so I didn't have the opportunity. And then the coach got me out of the game. I'm like, it wasn't my fault. You
not
know,
your
like
fault.
you should get me in. No one's gonna guard me. Like, give me a chance here, you know?
Oh, that's wonderful. So you never felt comfortable.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm jumping, and I'll
Yeah, no,
jump
no,
back
and
and
we'll-
forth.
we'll keep jumping.
Are you comfortable now? Are you a comfortable human being?
I'm comfort to me is also something I don't really like. And, I mean, I do, of course, we love like luxury and comfort, but when you really think about what comfort's all about, it stifles your progress. So I like, you know, I'm a very anxious DJ, for example. Like, I'm always thinking about the crowd, making sure that, oh, wait, someone's talking to someone else while I'm playing. That means I'm not getting their attention. I need to find a way to get their attention. I need to find a way to like move the needle or whatever I'm doing. So I'm very like constantly probing and trying different things in that regard, my performance aspect. So you could like apply that across the board.
So I always say that mental health is a big part of my platform. And I said, as I've gotten older, I've become very comfortable with my discomfort. I like, as soon as I'm
Yes, yeah.
comfortable, I feel like I'm not moving ahead, or I'm not
Right.
working, or I'm not doing something, and I just need noise. That's what fascinated me about you. Like, you always seem to surround yourself with, and on paper, when I was reading the things you were doing, it doesn't really work out. So you want to be a music promoter, and I'm jumping way
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, yeah.
But you go to school, you end up in Santa Barbara,
Right.
and talk about what the pickle patch was.
Okay, so the pickle patch was my apartment. It was a living room, technically. It was a small living room, maybe 300, 400 square feet, I think. It's hard to say what it was, but that's where we put on shows of bands that would come through. But we would have, because that's how, that was my life.
I know, but who would think, even if I like music,
Yeah.
what kind of human being would think, you know what, I got a living room, let's
Yeah.
promote a concert?
See, but this is the evolution of when I was in high school, because the only place I can play was living rooms. Because that's my music was literally, we would play in front of 10 to 40 people, and that was a big deal. Like, playing in front of 30 people was like, whoa, this is mind-blowing, you know?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, my first show was like, a couple of parents were like, we have to do this,
But here's what I find fascinating. You know, I do a show, I do America's Got Talent, and people come on all the time, and, their hopes and dreams, and this is why I really connected to your book. They always say, I never had the chance to follow my dream. I've sung for a couple of people, my parents and their friends, and I sang in a living room. I've never been on a stage.
Right.
You kind of brought the stage to your living room, whereas they see this as, I'm not going to go any step further.
Right.
When I was reading about the pickle patch, which actually, and I think you believe it, and it turns into reality, you made that a hip place for kind of known entities to want to show up. And
Right.
it wasn't because of the ticket count, it was
No,
because
of course
that's
not.
the cool place to be.
Yeah.
Did that
Yeah.
just happen, or was that a plan?
No, I mean, yeah, those things have to have a plan, I think, without having a plan, I guess. Because it's not like we want to be the coolest place, but we want to be consistent with our culture, what we're promoting. And at the end of the day, authenticity speaks loud if you do it consistently. So we were putting on so many shows, and some of the bands were like massive that were coming through. That was what's interesting, is that we were doing so many shows, right? 20 shows a month. I'm in college at the same time, so
In the living room.
yeah. And I also don't want to take all the credit here, because I didn't even name the pickle patch. It was my friend. I moved in to this existing, with my friends. Are like, they're doing some really cool stuff, and I want to join in on that, right? So it was like a group of us teenagers.
But I believe that you're like the catalyst. I think that in your life, up until this point, you move into these collaborations, and they're polar opposites every time. It's like you open, because most people, and I'm only talking because I don't really understand, or I try to do it myself, but I
Right.
don't understand. Most people, you started as a musician,
Right.
playing yourself, playing punk music,
Yeah.
playing that straight edge punk
Yes,
music.
yeah, sure,
And you would think that some people who find that, just like people today who are in rock and roll, that's where they stay.
Right.
And if rock and roll goes away, they kind of go away.
Yeah, right.
You seem to are on the cutting edge of all this stuff, the next new thing.
Well,
What makes you leave the comfort of whatever you're doing and then move on to something else?
it's the excitement of something new that you always want to find and discover. I mean, that's never changed in my life since I was a kid until now. It's whether it's like it doesn't have to stay in music either. That's why my frontier and what we were talking about backstage here is that it's discovery of now. It's like scientific breakthroughs on how we can potentially live indefinitely. Things like that are very exciting. And now, in this stage of my life, I have a platform. I have this personality that now I'm allowed to sometimes jump into some of these rooms with scientists and researchers, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm sitting here with Ray Kurzweil in his apartment.
But that's what's amazing about you.
Yeah.
But what I read throughout the book is I got a real sense of humanity, but humanity that kind of is incredibly relatable in the sense that I was always uncomfortable. I'm going to try this. They gave me this gig. I'm not ready for this gig. I missed this plane. I'm on the biggest stage. The first time I got booked at Coachella. Everything you do is really scary. And just as you succeed, just as it becomes what most people would think is comfortable, you say, I got another passion. I got another interest, and I'm going to go off and do that. I find that fascinating.
I think that's like part of why life is so meaningful, is where you have to find those new purposes and find new ways to be inspired and then share that inspiration. Because when you, like, at the end of the day, when I think about my shows and think about everything that I do, why I do it, it's to connect with people and boil it down to back to when I was a kid. It's like when I heard something, the first thing I want to do is go, you need to hear this. Or if I heard something that's like something else that's not music, I'm like, you need to read this book. You need, like, this changed me. I think the best people the most successful people are the ones that can really communicate that efficiently. Passionately, and be able to share that with people where they can actually take that in their life and do their own thing that they're going to do. So at the end of the day, it is all about that connection, right? And I always say this too, like I feel like I am the cook in the kitchen cooking the food, but I'm also watching as people eat my food. And I get that excitement of like, all right, they're like tasting my food, and it's like that's like why I did it.
But that's what it was fascinating. But I hear people giggling. But that's what, when you read the book, that's what's amazing, because you have just as much passion as in finding a result that is, for all intents and purposes, you make money, you get notoriety, but you get just as much passion, and you did even at the beginning, at finding somebody else and giving them an opportunity to be heard. He has his own. You have your own label, and Dim Mak, and your own clothing line. And that stuff. There isn't anything that you're not. You got pizza places. You're studying science to see that we can all live together. I mean, there's no level of passion that everything in your life you jump in with more energy and more excitement and more passion than I've ever. Do you think that's from your father?
I think that there's the work ethic and drive, that tough skin kind of dealing with failure. Yes. I think one of the greatest things he showed me as a dad was that he had the ability to financially support me. But he was doing his own thing. That's like kind of his thing. It's like, I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to come into your life and not. And as a kid, I'm like, well, he's got all these cars and he's flashy. I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, hey, Dad, can I have this thing? Like some expensive toy or it might be, because I already knew the answer. He just wasn't going to give it to me.
It was not.
No, that's not his ethos. I remember at one point, like I was, I'd stay at my dad's house when I first started DJing in New York because I wasn't making enough money, so I'd just crash at his house. He has a beautiful house, and I had to ship something out. Like I remember it was like something small, like FedEx. He's like, no, I'm not going to cover that. Like you have to cover everything if it's your business. And that's just how he stood by that.
And you had no resentment for that?
Well, I guess I was also coming from this hardcore, punk hardcore subculture where you are living in a world where it's not about how much money you're showing is where you get your cool points, like your fancy shoes. And it's about you get your respect by producing things for the community, because the community is so small. So I grew up in that kind of lifestyle where it's not about me wearing Louis Vuitton. It's more about me like doing a zine, talking about the bands that we're talking about. That's how you get your respect. Wow. Starting a band, like being productive in your community to get the word out. Putting on the shows in living rooms, being in the band, learning to play the instruments, and then you're a representative of that community. So luckily that kind of brought me that kind of ethos where it's not about the money that I can make that's going to change my life or the expensive thing that will change my life, that'll make me cool. It's more like the more productive I am, I don't even realize it, but I learn how to play guitar, bass, sing. I learned how to play instruments. I learned how to record music because I wanted to be a productive member of the community, so they respect me.
Oh, I got to tell you that having read your book, and I think this is why everybody who's a parent, who's just a human being, who's on this earth needs to read this book, because I do respect. We have, I live by the credo of Nike, which is just do it. And you just do it. And I think that everybody in life overthinks and has barriers. And I sense that you didn't have any, you had natural barriers, not being like anybody you grew up, their size. You're not who I would think about typically in the punk world. You know, you didn't play an instrument when you got interested in it. You learn it. You seem to just continually climb these barriers and move on, and at the same time, serve your community around you. And I mean your friends and your
Right.
family and whoever you come in contact with.
I think that's what's really important, is that we lose sight, especially in this day and age with social media. You always compare yourself to these bigger, more aspirational things that are happening around you. You're like, I wish I could do that. So you stop yourself. You have to really be present and think about who you're communicating with right in front of you. Whether it's, in this case, when I first started, it was like 10 people. So if I can strike a conversation with one of those 10 people, and we have a conversation about one of my songs or whatever it might be, I'm like, then it's meaningful. So I also want to point this out. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my career path is just managing expectations and understanding that, for the most part, if I was to break down the percentage of what, if I was to go out and work for something, 70% of the time it just doesn't work out, or even more. And especially when you're starting out, it's more like 90% of the time. So if you go into it going, if let's say you're trying for a part, I'm going to go to 20 of these castings and know that maybe one will work. I'm okay with that. So you have to go through. You have to be okay with the rejection that many times. If you really believe in it, you'll continue doing that.
I don't think people have that thick of a skin, and I think we need to. And those are the lessons that I'm learning from your book.
Exactly, because with my production, whatever it was that moved the needle, the Steve Aoki needle, it was never like one big moment that was like, all right, the needle's been moved. My life's changed. It's never been that way. Like the Coachellas and things like that happened early on were big moments, but they weren't moving the needle for me. They were little jumps. And even these big opportunities to work with artists, some of them just didn't do what it's supposed to do. And some of them did, but you just have to do a lot of it. And there are artists, there are people in the world that just know how to nail it every time. The Calvin Harris's, the Marshmallows, that in my world, that every song's a hit, and it's just shifting culture.
Yeah, but they seem to be a much narrower lane than what I'm reading about you. And
it's a different lane, but
it is a lane, and I feel like you have traveled every road you could possibly travel, and you're just at the beginning of your journey, and you're just gonna.
That's also exciting. It does feel like the beginning every time.
But at the same time, I found you to be a dichotomy from reading the book, because I read so much passion and so much heart in your relationships with your mom. Even you had a distant relationship with your father, but being at his bedside when he was passing, and the collaborations you've had and the friends that you've lost, DJ AM and all these people. You seem to be somebody who's got an incredible heart and wants to open up, but at the same time, your work ethic is a very solitary. You create this solitary world for somebody. I think at this point, you'd want to settle down, be married, have a picket fence, live that Orange County lifestyle, but you don't.
Yeah, it's, I do talk about that a little bit in the book. But, it's not like it's not going to happen. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a kid in the future. That's definitely a goal of mine. And it's not going to be a white picket fence house. It's just a different kind of lifestyle to have to decide.
No, I know, but I just feel like you... It'll have a foam pit.
Well, it already does. But
what I'm saying is, you come from, you seem so close to people, but you're also, when I read it, the people in your life really move you, but then at the same time, this flow, you're like in a stream. You're in the Aoki stream of life, in that blue brook,
Yeah.
and you enjoy everybody and grab on as tight as you can to everybody you're working with, but you're not beyond letting go and then moving on, and maybe you'll meet again down the stream.
That's a great way to put it, because I definitely, you should have a good idea of where you are in 5 or 10 years if you're running a business, and be like, okay, this is where we're going. This is exactly. With business, that makes sense. With my life, that doesn't, because I just follow my heart and my passion, and it's led me down, we'll talk after this, and you'll be like, hey, I got this idea to do this, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. I want to, let's work together, and then all of a sudden, me and Howie do some crazy thing, and all of a sudden, we do a breakthrough in media, whatever it is together, which we talked about.
Right.
And something happens, and boom, like I'm in that world,
the
you know?
point, and that's why I think that this, more than anything, is a self-help book. Because I think that the problem that the average person does, our culture, and I'm talking about the world today, is to have that plan. You know, I'll go to school, I have to go to college, I'll get a diploma, I'll graduate, I'll get a job. When I get a job, I got to be married by the time before I'm 30. I got to have 2 kids,
Yeah.
I got to have that. And when that doesn't look like it does, we fall into depression, and and that's why we have hump day, you know, because halfway through the week, most people are, you know, pissed off about what they're doing, and they wait for the weekend so that
Yeah.
they can forget all that shit. But you don't. You just are just looking, you always are open to tomorrow. He showed up tonight, and he goes, what is this? No, but that's the beauty of you. You know you have a book, but you don't know what we were going to do. You don't know what we're going to talk about. You're not really sure where this venue is. But right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, but I'm just happy to be here with you. And I was like,
No. No,
well,
but
actually, I didn't know if people were going to be here.
you didn't know people. He didn't know. But that's what I find fascinating, you know, and I try to live by that. You know, I happen to have a wife and 3 kids and 2 grandkids, but you say, okay, you're just open. Just to, you know, and this is when I became fascinated with you. A couple of years ago, we worked together. And I asked him to do a favor and show up on a show for scale, for like no money. And he said, well, let me see if I can fit it in. That morning you got up early, you did a Nike commercial. You shot for 3 hours, did a Nike commercial, went to the gym, worked out, had a bunch of meetings, did 3 or 4 hour shoot with me, and then went and did your set at Caesars. And you were on stage at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, you don't stop. You don't stop, and you say, okay, and you have every reason to stop, and the world does, and I've never seen anybody go like you. Is there any fear in you? Are you afraid?
Well, I don't have fear of rejection. So I've learned that, you know, it's like if you accept that, then life, you know, is okay. Like, for example, I'm not like, you know, since I was a kid, I just was always scared to speak. So I'm not a speaker, but I've decided that it doesn't matter if I'm sitting here, you know, sometimes making sense, sometimes I am making sense. I just have to accept that whatever I say is going to be okay, you know. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with myself. So I think that's a big step for me as far as making these minor steps is what I was talking about versus like the artists that just seem to like just rise so quickly. I'm like the guy like inching, and I'm happy with that. That's my process. That seems to work for me. But as I'm inching, I'm also inching going sideways and trying these different things and just finding like this meaning and purpose and all these little things.
For somebody who says they don't like to speak, you are an incredible wordsmith, and based on your book. Talk a little bit, and creating images, and I could watch. I mean, this book is a fascinating journey. Explain the title and the color.
It's called Blue, the color of noise, and blue is my favorite color. It's you know, funny enough, I didn't really think about it until after the fact that blue is my last name. My name is Aoki, means blue tree.
It does?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the strange thing is that like that came last, you know. But it's part of my heritage. It's part of my roots of who I am. But I had to think of an idea of how to frame this memoir. What is the overarching theme? And it's easy to think about a color because a color for me resonates a lot. And here's a strange thing. Like, so colors, they trigger your neurotransmitters to feel moods and, you know,
right.
Simple. You look at a certain color, you feel certain ways. With blue, it calms you, it chills you. That's why a lot of people go to the sea or the ocean. Like, you know, if you have writer's block, you go to like the ocean and it,
right.
like, you know, somehow like calms you down. It's called the color of noise, so it's kind of the opposite, right? The blue, the color of noise.
Right.
See, I am noise. So I think of me as being blue, but I need to go to the calm place to find my noise. So it's kind of like, for me, it's like this exploration. Like, I need the calm, but I am the noise.
That is, it's wonderful and kind of relatable at the same time, because I think that you're probably one of the most self-aware people I have ever met, in as far as letting yourself I believe that the brilliance of humanity is our instinct. And so many of us don't really act on instinct. I feel like you are the king of instinct in as far as when you have a feeling, you go for it.
Yes, I go for it, and I know that I have to go into it knowing that there's a huge possibility that it will not happen.
Do you even think
But
that, or that doesn't even?
I just go. I'm going to go for it anyways.
Just
I want to
going for
DJ in space. I really do. I want to DJ on moon. I want to be on a space shuttle and DJ. I have to.
And you know you will.
What?
You know you will.
I'm inching my way towards that. So there are those like Elon Musk kind of goals.
See,
like,
they laugh. This is what's interesting because that's the norm, and you're not the norm, and you guys need to become the norm by reading this book. And the norm is, it's our society. You say something like that, and the normal reaction is they laugh and they giggle because it sounds impossible. But your life is laughter is love. You're right. No, but well, then that's good. Then you're already on this Aoki train that I have just pretty late in life got onto. But I find that, as a parent, everybody will tell you why they can't do it, and there is nothing that you could say. When I was reading the book, near the end of the book. Again, I'm jumping all over the place. Yeah. But you're sitting down with these scientists because you're fascinated with the science of longevity. And it's not only just for your personal health, but you've also been able, and I know you talked to me backstage about the doctors and the scientists that you're talking to. They put it in very simple terms. It's kind of interesting when you just read that the lobster or the crab doesn't age, where we deteriorate and we fall. You're fascinated by that. Not only are you fascinated by that, you're learning about that, you're sharing the information, and you're making it part of you're melding it into the money that you're making at concerts. Part of it is going to, not the research, but spreading the word.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. You're like an octopus of...
Octopus are amazing creatures. They're fantastic. I mean, can you imagine sitting in this chair and becoming the chair in 2 seconds? Like,
no.
Literally, like, they can't see you anymore because like the top half's black because of the black behind us, and your arm is the color of this. That's what octopus can do. It's incredible. They're like incredible species. Same with cuttlefish. I'm a big fan of cuttlefish. Imagine if we could
this
take
is what
that,
I found when you read the book. This is exactly, you are being...
I can't eat octopus for this purpose. I think they are aliens. They're wonderful. Yeah, I mean...
But this is the thing, your life jumps like that, but it doesn't only jump with like a little side note. You know what you're talking about. You're passionate. You've dived into everything that you're interested in and continue to...
100% an enthusiast. I am not an expert in any means. That's why, like, when I talk about things, I'm like, I know it, but I might not know the entire science behind it. I could have to bring my friend in who's like the expert. And then he can help.
But here's what I'm talking about, and this is what's fascinating about your entire journey, which I feel is just the beginning. As you become more known and more powerful, it just gives you more access. But you said you're an enthusiast. My friend Jay Leno is a car enthusiast.
Right.
Not a general enthusiast. He has no interest in food. He has no interest in travel. No, but there's nothing wrong with that. That's what he's an enthusiast, and that's how most people are.
Right.
I love basketball, and I'm a sports enthusiast. You're an enthusiast, like just generally about life and humanity and other people and other genres and music and sound and noise and colors and writing. How does that happen?
Because I also, I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet because I get to, having this feeling and being able to travel the world, I'm constantly engaged. I'm constantly stimulated by new cultures, new sounds, new people. I go to different cities and like end up sitting with Richard Dawkins in Oxford University, and then going somewhere else and meeting like the next budding Italian rapper, and then going to a slum in India and like seeing how people are living in that environment. I get so lucky for these opportunities, going to South Africa and going to Kruger National Park and being on reserve. It's like, really is like the luckiest position to be able to, do all this. And I'll tell you that there was a long period of time where it was a blur, and I was going by going, I don't really remember any of this stuff. And that's when I started stopping going, I got to make the most of everywhere I go with what I can do and how I can, learn. And, as you learn, you realize just you agree that you know very little and that you have so much more to learn. And then life becomes much more exciting.
And you've also, in your book, learned a lot from big mistakes.
Yeah.
Big mistakes and big failures, and whether it was drinking too much or taking a drug, you lived your life really clean. There's no middle ground with you. You're either, racing or sleeping. There's no middle ground.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
But that was the documentary there.
Little plug.
Yes. But so is there a Steve Aoki message in this book? Is there something, like if you said to somebody, if they said, why should I read it? Or what do you want us to think about you? What is the overriding?
I think that one of the most important things is that we're all going to face failures. It's just part of life, but you have to learn how to pick yourself up, adjust, and there are times when you have to get off that same line and try something else. Just like in life, you might believe so deeply in something, but you're going the wrong approach about it, and you have to adjust and get up. And life there's majority of failure and very little success. I think, that's why I don't talk about my later years so much, the successful parts, like flying in a private jet, doing all these things. That's not, that you don't learn much from that. That's the comfort that we're talking about. That doesn't teach us anything. It's if we're really going to inspire and really engage with people in a way that it's effective and meaningful, then we got to.
But even in your estimation of comfort, I don't know that the average person would be comfortable. Even if you put them in a private jet, but you put them in 10 cities in 10 days at 2 o'clock in the morning in front of 100,000 people in each place, I don't know if that's comfortable. It sounds comfortable, to be in a private jet and everything.
Well, you have a choice because you are doing 3 cities in a day sometimes.
Right.
But yeah.
So do you ever have you ever
But then
just said,
there's an excitement to that, and I like that thrill. I'm can we do 5?
Really?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I get high off of it. That's
get
my
tired?
natural high.
Are you tired?
No, of course I get tired, but naps are everything for me. That's I'm the king
You're a
of naps.
napper?
Yeah, I'm a nap guy, yeah.
You didn't write about naps in the book. There were no
Yeah,
naps.
that's true. I do nap I could sleep anywhere.
You can sleep.
I could sleep. I could fall asleep. I could probably sleep right now.
See, I find that fascinating that somebody has so much interest like you and so much passion that I can't sleep. I don't sleep.
We all need to sleep something. Transportation is the best place to sleep.
Not all transportation. Have you ever been on a Greyhound?
Well, I do remember no, I do remember I was talking about someone was asking me an interview, Fast Company or something. They were asking me what do you, I forgot what the question was, but the answer was this, that people don't understand how amazing it is to sleep horizontally.
How amazing it is to sleep horizontally.
Yeah, because I'm always sleeping in chairs, so it's when you sleep in a chair constantly, your neck hurts, your back hurts, and that's how you sleep because you're always.
You don't have a
right?
bed at home?
Yeah, but it's I feel like I don't hit the bed the way I should, So I was if there's one thing I'm sleeping horizontally is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. To lay down full because I bring a pillow with me on the plane. I arch it so that my head tries to tilt horizontal as far back. I'm trying to even think of a device where you can put a rubber band around your head, right? So it doesn't lean forward. So you just put a rubber band around your head and you put it on your headrest, and then all of a sudden it feels like you're horizontal, but because
And you're also an inventor, too. I
you
love
would
that.
buy that? I'd probably.
They will. I can see you flying in the shuttle to space with a rubber band on your head. It's just, you want to have kids?
Yes, so I have an evolutionary urge to make sure that I have an Aoki that can continue. That's what I know instinctually is in me from tens of thousands of years of Homo sapiens,
Yeah, but you got to put it in somebody else to make that happen.
Yeah, but so until that happens, I'm riding my train, you know. But I mean, it's going to happen at some point. Like that's like I'm drawn to making sure that I have a boy. I need to make sure that the line continues.
What if you had girls?
I got to keep going, or you know, or you know, spin the thing and then like make sure that you know it's.
Spin the thing, I know, the centrifuge.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But, yeah.
So, right now, what are you most passionate about? Because when you read the book, your passions from page 1 are different on page 2. Like every time I picked up the book and put it down, you were you're always on a different path. What's your next path?
Okay,
you know?
This is really exciting to talk about because, I mean, we all talk about, you know, aging. We all age, and then we all die. And we accept that death is definitely going to happen. I mean, without a doubt. And I'm talking to people, and I'm meeting people, and reading about people that say that's not necessarily the case. It doesn't necessarily have to be that case. And, you know, there's like science fiction, there's science fact, right? I like to live right in the middle of those two worlds and see how can we scientifically get to some of the science fact stuff from science fiction. You know, use our imagination and try to find that line if there is a possibility. And so those are the people I'm talking to that are trying to get to that place. So it's exciting to get in those conversations.
Are you as passionate about that and that track you're on as you are about music?
That's interesting. Music is just like, it's the most natural way for me to be collaborative, to be creative, to, you know, that's like, it's just in my heart. It's like, it just comes out. You know, this is like this new realm of thinking it's just on the next level that really excites me because it's new to me. I get to sit with, like I said, like what I've been saying lately in the last year is that I want to do a song. Like people always ask, who you want to work with? You know, like obviously I wouldn't want to work with Drake. I want to work with,
You've already worked with Drake though.
Well, just a remix, but I want to do a song with him, right? But like when I really think of the number one guy, I want to do a song with Elon Musk. Like I want to do something
He has
bigger.
such a beautiful voice.
I mean,
but that would be really cool.
Yeah, so and that's the great thing about this idea of it's not just about doing collaborations with artists, it's about doing collaborations with people. And
I'm also fascinated by, you don't get jaded at all, as long as most people, once something becomes routine, when I was reading the book, and you talk about this in the book, who do I want to work with, and throughout your career, you have opportunities, and whether it be remixes or that, but when I read it, it's like reading, the energy of a 10-year-old kid who's so excited. I know nothing about your business, but you said, the envelope would come, and it's like a kid on Christmas morning, and you had the stems, and stems are the little pieces that make up the music, right? From these artists that you want to work with. And I felt like, just as somebody who doesn't know what the terminology is, like I'm reading about this really excited little boy who's on Christmas morning opening up his presents. And I was fascinated by, as long as you've been in the business, and as many people as you already have worked with, you still get that same excitement.
How can you not get excited to get the stems for Thriller? From Michael Jackson, one of the greatest songs of all time. Or in the first case, the Dancing Machine, when I was asked to remix Jackson 5, like my first concert was Michael Jackson.
Well, you say that to me because that would be exciting because I have no idea what they are, and I don't have access to that. I feel like you work with everybody, and on a nightly basis, you have access to these people, to these sounds, to these. But when you wrote about it, I got excited about it because you said you can hear on these stems, which are little individual pieces of tape,
wow.
you could hear
it's incredible.
While they were recording the stuff that nobody heard. So it's like you were in the room, and you made me as a reader believe I was in the room going, oh my God, I got access to what most people never get access to that has become a marker in our lives.
Right. Yeah, I think the term access is really important to me. To find access to new information, whatever it might be that might intrigue my life or just be interesting to me. And find a way that, if there's a way for me to collaborate in that space somehow or work in that space or learn, most importantly learn, That's where I'm drawn. That's where the jaded attitude's completely gone. And if you're in that room, you can't have an ounce of that anyways. You shouldn't be in that room.
I agree with you. I'm always afraid. I fear, death and getting old or not. Somebody told me that curiosity is the answer to everything. As soon as you lose your curiosity, and when you look at the average person, they get to a certain age and they don't make music like they used to. Because they're stuck in that music, or they're stuck in that style, or they're stuck in that haircut, or whatever it is, and they don't move on. I feel like you're in your 40s now, and you still have that energy and that curiosity of a 15-year-old.
I'm always looking for that too. Like it has to things that come up that are new that kind of sway my world in a direction where, I always say about my label is that I looked up to so many other labels when I was running. I've been still running Dimmock over 20 years, and all these indie labels were bigger than us. Companies were bigger than us. I would even say like artists were like bigger, and somehow, why did I dodge the bullet? Like they're so much bigger. I don't understand how we dodged the bullet. Because it wasn't money. It wasn't like throwing more money at it and then like you can survive it. Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, you have to be agile. You have to be able to have that flexibility.
Are you that aware of what else is going on, or are you so focused on what you're doing?
You have to be aware of what's going on.
Right, but sometimes that could be debilitating, right? Like you talk about another label being so big, and then some people might think, well, if I'm so aware of what they're doing, what can I do? Look what they're doing. They're huge. How am I going to...
But you would get inspired by that instead of hating on it, right?
But that's you. Yeah. That's what I learned from the book. That's different, because most people would use that as a hurdle to not go over.
Then you can't move forward. You're just stuck.
Which is the average person.
If you're hating and being pissed off or jealous, you cannot move. If you can find the inspiration in those things of like how they were able to get through, you can find your way. It's definitely not going to be what you think. You're going to have to think outside of your own box.
Well, no expectations.
With no expectations. That's the most important thing. I think you have to really go into it going, it's okay if it doesn't work out, because the process, if I really believe it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it, because I believe it. And in that process, you get to meet the people that also feel the same way. And then that's incredible, to be able to connect with people and talk about things that have that same feeling. And then you realize like that's like a big meaning of life.
It really is.
Is being able to share and communicate things that you love without having this like, we're going to make a lot of money or we're going to do something like, because money is only, in the case for me, is to give me more access for things that I want to do, right?
Right.
And it's, like buy my mom a house that's like 6 doors away from me. That was the best thing I ever spent my money on. So now I can see my mom all the time. So like there's like those things that are much more meaningful. That's where money comes into play, where you're like, I could spend $5 million into my Aoki's Playhouse in my house to build a foam pit. This is probably poor decisions for like reselling my home. 16-foot deep pool like
or
next
not.
to my house,
or not.
But,
See, you don't think about that.
Yeah.
You're doing what you want, and that house may end up being worth more because they got Steve Aoki's foam pit. But what I'm saying is that there is no hurdle. There is no, and everything. When I was reading the book, like even caking, and when you were and you're famous for the cake, and you're famous for and you articulate why you were going to do it. It's a great, melding of something celebratory, something messy, something, and the explosion. And you talk about it. I feel like I was being caked reading it, but it was wonderful. At the same time, you had incredible pushback.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem to.
It did affect me though.
It did.
Because
but you did it. But you went against that. You were losing jobs. People weren't going to hire you. Certain promoters. They were concerned, but you decided.
Well, I did kind of bend there a little bit, but just to go into the caking thing, I think, like the philosophy behind the caking, first of all, is to create a Steve Aoki experience. You got to create something that's unique. Just like if you're a comedian, you have to have like your own skits.
Right.
So if I do the same thing that other DJs do, I'm like, there's nothing unique to my show. It's fun, engaging, people leave happy, but I want people leaving going, I saw Steve Aoki. That's like Steve Aoki show. I'll never forget that show because of the unique experience that I brought to the table. So I always tried all these different things, right? And caking was a random, like, fun idea that just worked, you know.
But then you had pushback.
Then I had pushback, yes.
But you decided, even though you stopped for maybe a minute,
Yeah.
you decided you had pushback not only from people who were going to fill your wallet, you know. But
That's where it really affected me because some of the people that.
But you said fellow DJs were also giving you shit.
Yeah, that was hard. That was pretty hard.
And yet, to this day, it's like one of the, it's
here-
your brand.
Okay, so here's the thing. So what I've learned through this is that I think it's a testament to me when I try anything new and there's that much pushback. I need to know if I really believe in what I'm doing, consistency will trump all those criticisms. Consistency of what you're doing that you believe in. You have to be consistent to the point where they just can't say anything anymore. Like they can try, but it's like the noise isn't as loud.
But you
In the
realize
beginning,
that's
it's really loud,
a
right?
superpower mindset that humanity doesn't have and needs to be bolstered by books like this. To see that, look how it worked for somebody. And cake is just kind of a symbol for how we need to run all our own lives. I mean, it's truly amazing, you know, what you did and what you power through and what you continue to power through. And I have no doubt in the next couple of years, Elon's going to be singing.
I hope so.
I'm going to be downloading Elon's single while you're up in his spaceship with a rubber band on your head, sleeping horizontal. So we're going to take this opportunity right now, and I'm going to open it up to the audience and let the people that really love you ask you questions. I love
there's
you
people
too.
here.
Yes, we're not alone. And we're going to open it up to the floor so you can ask Steve anything. And how is this conducted? Do they go up to a mic, or can we hear them? Or
It is conducted as follows. I bring a microphone to you. Please raise your hands. Just a quick reminder, around here, questions typically are short. There is no such thing as a two-part question. There are no follow-up questions. Only Howie Mandel gets to do that. And our first question tonight is...
Hi. Steve, saw you at EDC. Your set was unbelievable. It was our favorite of our show. We met you at the helicopter pad. I just wanted to say I love you. Anyways, if you could ask or say anything to Bruce Lee, what would it be? What would it be?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. You know, I mean, I think it's clear, everyone in the room, how obsessed I am with Bruce Lee. Dimmock, my label, is, you know, based off of Bruce Lee. He was the only Asian role model that I looked up to that, I mean, there's other Asian role models, but he was the one that, like, when I looked at Bruce Lee, he was loved by everyone. That just doesn't happen for Asian people like that, you know, like just... Even to this day, you know, there's BTS. I consider them, they're part of the Bruce Lee phenomena, where they've touched so many people across so many different ethnicities and people across the world that they've become that 50-year mark, you know, because of Bruce Lee. And then I'm like, where's the other Asian faces that everyone in the world loves? And then now there's BTS. Sorry, I didn't answer your question yet. What would I say to Bruce Lee? Wow. You know, it's like, I think this is what happens is when you're faced with someone that you look up to so much that you just are speechless, you know?
well, can I say?
Yeah.
But you're not. So what he would say aren't words, it's what he does, and actions speak louder than words. And the outfit I'm wearing is an homage to Bruce Lee. He explained these are the colors of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is embedded on it. You know, as a fan, how much Bruce Lee means to him. I think the honor is just in everything he does, from his fashion to his books to his documentary, the fact that you know it. He's just saying how important Bruce Lee and how inspirational Bruce Lee is in his life. It doesn't take words. It is, you are saying so much more. And if Bruce Lee, and I believe in that kind of stuff, if Bruce Lee was around today and could see this, he would be honored by everything that you do for him and because of him. And there is a spot before BTS. It's Bruce Lee, Steve Aoki, and then
So
BTS.
can I just bring you with me? Because that was well said, thank you.
What's your best piece of advice for someone who wants to have a stage presence?
Stage presence. Well, you need to really look at the whole crowd, right? You can't just speak to the front. You have to really look at everyone. And you have to think about how do you get everybody's attention. I mean, honestly, I don't know what it's like to be like a speaker and get everybody's attention, because it would bother me if some people were talking or something like that.
You're doing it right now.
I am. Well, yeah, well, I guess so, but they're all engaged already. They're, Anyways, for the DJing side, you have to have a narrative that you're playing to the crowd. You have to speak to them in that way. You have to explain your narrative through your music and surprise them and pique them. And, there's nothing, like for me, my set is a roller coaster. My set goes up in emotional arcs and comes down and goes up, and then is a surprise. It's a song by Celine Dion, and then it comes back. And then it's a new remix I made for John Lennon, and it comes back to Steve Aoki music. And I like to just take them on this journey, and same time cakes are being thrown at one part, and then there's this thing happening. I'm just constantly, entertaining.
But you, unlike a lot of your cohorts, are kind of out front, and it's great music, but it's a Steve Aoki experience.
Right.
And you bring it face forward. You talk about stage presence. There's a lot of people like Marshmello and
Right.
Dead Mouse, and they
Yeah.
wanted to hide, And I know that was part of the mystique, but it's also I was able to hide behind a mask or
But they have, that's I think the most important part about them and myself and whoever it might be that has the stage presence that can command so many people, is that they're themselves. They're speaking their life experience of what they're interested in. With Marshmello, he loves working with hip hop artists and pop singers, and so he does these amazing collaborations. He's an incredible producer, so he's able to do that, and he's going back to his brand, his helmet, and it's a happy brand. It's like he's smiling all the time. It's
Yeah.
great. It's wonderful. It actually works really good. Like every time I see it, I get happy. So
I do. I follow him on TikTok.
yeah. So I mean that's the energy that he's speaking. There might be an angry guy that he wants to make everyone angry, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like Marilyn Manson, or you go there to get riled up.
Not to put words in your mouth again, but this is what I gather from you. You're authentic. And I think in this day and age, authenticity is what people, regardless of who you are, kind of relate to and hook into. So to answer your question and do what he does, he's probably the most real, down-to-earth, engaged human being on this planet. You have to just don't try to create, well, maybe that's not true, but that's not
I think the best thing to do is you take the things that really inspire you, whatever it might be. If you love wearing blue shoes, wear them proudly and do your thing with, you have to think about what it is about you that you want to speak to the world. And remember, it doesn't have to be a lot of people. That's the thing. It's like when I was starting, I was playing in front of 6 to 20 people, and I was happy. I was like, there's 3 people singing my song. But I taught them all the lyrics before. That is that joy in doing what you do. I always say to people say, can you give me advice? On what? What do you want advice on? And they'll go, well, how do you become successful? Success is the moment, and that's what I got from you. The moment you find what it is, that path that you want to travel on, you're successful. Success is mindset. It's all here. It's not money. It's not notoriety. Yeah, it's not quantifiable. It's like what we have in your head. Like those 3 people singing, even though I told them the lyrics, I'm like, Ed, this part, I need you to sing this thing. Can you remember this? And then when the time came and they did that, I'm like, okay, that's success. Yeah. Even though it's minor as that, I will never forget that. Right. To this day, So it's just like your quarterback friend will never forget that pass. Any other questions?
Good evening. My question is, it's probably in the book, but if you could elaborate just a little bit on the influence your mother had on you and kind of what qualities your mother instilled in you.
Where are you?
It's your mother.
That does not sound like my mom. Oh, you're over here? Wait, sorry, you said something about my mom?
Yes.
What did you say about my mom?
Don't talk about his mama.
No, good evening. Well, Howie elaborated a little bit about your father, and like I said, this may be in your book, but I run a movement for women and women's empowerment. And I wanted to know, what kind of qualities did your mother instill in you that you think made you the man that you are today?
90% of me. I feel like it's such an overpowering percentage of like my heart, my like empathy, love. A lot of that is really coming from my mom.
And as somebody who read the book, you got to read it. It is kind of a love letter to his mom. As a parent, if I was his parent and I read this, she's got a. Did you read it? Did you ever read it yet?
I don't think she read it, but that's okay.
Okay. But I'm sure you tell her everything
Yeah,
you
yeah,
told him
it'd
that. But
be
you
awkward having
read
to
about
read
this
it, to be
woman
honest
and
with
you
you,
think,
but-
what a wonderful woman whose heart is in the right place, who taught her son respect, and nobody ends up like this if they don't have a great leader. And his mother was much more in his life than your father.
She was my rock. She's,
Yeah.
she was in my corner the whole
Yeah.
time. My dad was like flying in and out, and he was more of this figure. And I had this relationship with him too, but the relationship that I have with my mom is incredible.
And
it's-
you'll enjoy that part of the book. There's so many, the book covers his family, his career, his mindset, his beginnings. There is nothing left out. And when you put down the book, you think, wow, this is how I or anybody I care about should be living their life.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hi. My question is there anything that you've done or haven't done that you are the most proud of, where you can look back and say, I don't think I could have done that without the people that surround me?
Like, what's the most proud thing I've done? Or
How can you say or haven't done? What is the thing you haven't done that you're most proud of?
Or something that you aspire to do.
How is that possible?
Meaning something that you aspire to do that's on your bucket list. So to
oh,
speak.
what's on my bucket list? Well, there's a lot.
Space.
Yeah, space is one. We talked about that. I would love to swim with
Octopus.
with tiger sharks. My friend is getting me excited about that. Orcas, he swims with orcas. Whale sharks in the deep sea.
Everything's swimming with you.
I love the sea. I'm obsessed with the ocean. I love being on the ocean. So that's like my go-to is, when you see these pictures of like someone like swimming next to a huge whale shark.
So why did you move to the desert? You come from a beach town.
I travel 250 days of the year. So
And I know,
in the
Nevada
summertime-
tax is...
So when you're always gone, like that's
Right.
when I explore, and like traveling is like you just get on a plane, you're there. So
So those are the things. The bucket list is being able to swim.
that's the first thing in my head. There's plenty more, but and
Longevity and spreading that
then-
science.
Exactly, and then eventually, becoming half AI, half human, because I think I think we're at this point in with technology, because it's moving at such a fast rate. I'm not sure if it's exponential, but it's definitely faster than linear, right? As far as where we're going with tech and medicine, that our goal is, when you say hey, I want to live forever, and people are like, you're crazy, I don't want to live forever. But the whole point is we want to cure diseases. We don't want to see anyone wake up tomorrow and be like, oh yeah, my mom has incurable disease. You're like, no, we have to find a cure. We want to protect the people that we love. We want to protect ourselves. So we want to live as long as we can, healthy, and the species is living longer and longer, right?
I read recently that they did an actual head transplant. Would you do something like that?
Eventually that won't be so weird.
Yeah, it would be.
No, I don't think so. There's
I don't want to touch somebody else's penis.
But imagine in 200 years ago, what you would tell someone now. If you went back 200 years in time, be like, the internet, or whatever it might be, or whatever it is, changing your organs, or, there's going to be a time when, the craziest things you ever heard are going to be very, very normal conversation.
I would imagine that if you believe, like you just said, in general, like the internet and everything, do you ever think today about when you were that little boy at the beginning of the book? and go, oh my God, I would never dream that I'd be sitting here
Yeah.
today doing this in my house, in my foam pit, in my.
So this is like what's great about this book is that as I was writing it, there's a lot of those kinds of feelings that I was able to really feel and get into myself, you know, because that's like the great thing about writing is that you get to put all these feelings down and then you live with them even more. That was
I like the way you did that in the
really,
book. Those are the
really-
drops?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the book, it's kind of like he does his music. They're called the drops. Is that
Yeah,
am I
yeah.
using it right? And then it's like you kind of let go of how you feel at that point in your life, or what you've learned from that, or philosophies.
Right. Exactly. It's more like because it's interesting. As I started seeing a therapist, in the last like 4 years, that's allowed me to look deeper into the reasons why I do things or like the process, and then I start writing, and then a lot of these on how to mold it into this memoir kind of came through in my own therapy in a way, kind of understanding the process and like living in these moments, and not, being grateful. I think the gratitude level becomes 10 times bigger when you're able to write things out about what's going on in your life or how, that question, do you ever think back about when you were a kid? Like, can you imagine being here,
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's a great journey. We have time for another one
Final
more?
question for the evening.
Oh, sorry. So I noticed that you're always pushing to become better, but there's always a point in life where you just want to say, I want to give up. And I want to know what was your lowest point in life and how you overcome that part.
My lowest point. My scariest point was when, and I talk about this in the book, is when I was on my acid trip. I was 13.
It's when you
So-
found religion.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That was a huge, if there was one thing that happened where it a major shift in how I thought about things, it was that acid trip, because that fucked me up. It really scared me. I think it's also why.
But you go from 0 to 60. You got to know, before that acid trip and
Yeah.
then after that acid trip, you lived cleaner than anybody I've ever.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy is that it's so scary being in the depth of the darkness of that. I literally was thinking stuff I never thought of, like suicide, and I was 13. I never thought about that stuff. I would never say that I understand depression like someone that deals with depression, but thinking in your head, I'm going to be fucked for the rest of my life. I cannot think normally. That shit was fucking scary. That was the scariest shit. So if I were to go back in time, I wouldn't do that, even though it would change the trajectory of my life. 'Cause
But
that shit
here's
was
the
so
thing,
scary.
and I don't know what your question is coming from, and if you're talking about
Yeah,
yourself.
sorry
but
if I
talking,
didn't
Well, no,
really-
but we're talking about all of us, and that's why you need to read this book, because that you did, I felt like I was on that awful trip with you, and you
Yeah.
describe it wonderfully dark, at the same time dealing with your father's death,
Oh,
and
that was heavy. That and AM's death.
and
oh.
AM and the DJ, and friends dying, and going through the shooting at the festival in Vegas when
yeah.
you were there.
Yeah.
There were so
Yeah.
many low points, and what you should do as somebody who asked that question, read this book, because I think in life, there's an old saying, it's terrible, shit happens. And what's interesting is reading about somebody like you, and a lot of shit has happened. And that's because I think you're open to so many more people than the average person, so a lot of shit happens, You had access to acid. You have access to really good friendships, and then they die. And then, all the shit that happens in your life. What's fascinating is the fact, and the answer is, you gotta get up. If you want to be a
Right.
boxer, that's what I
Right.
took from you.
Yeah.
If you love boxing, you're gonna get hit in the face, and it's gonna hurt, and you're gonna fall down. But you seem to have good people around you who care about you. You care about yourself, good family. So I think, reading this book, if you're ever down, read this book is the answer. And follow this path. And live like Steve. This is a must read, and I'm not saying that because I'm here and because, I don't know you that well, but I got to tell you, I got nothing but respect for you. I recommend it. You talk to somebody I'm here with. I recommend it to everybody in the office. This is how I want you to do business. This is how I want you to live life. This is how I want you to think about your mother. This is how I want you to respect people. This is what I want your work ethic to be. You are a great teacher, and I think you're going to take us into the future, and I can't thank you enough for letting me be a small part of it.
Thanks a lot.
Steve Aoki, everybody. The book is blue. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Howie Mandel. Thank you, Steve.